friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren, you may also call me Lo, and today I'm bringing you the Mid-Year Book Freakout Tag. So thank you so much for being here, I hope you're doing well, and let's get on into it. The Mid-Year Book Freakout Tag is probably one of my favorite booktube videos that people make, and it's definitely one of the reasons that I started my channel, so I'm so excited to finally be able to participate. I just think that this tag is a really good overview of the first half of everybody's reading year, and for that reason I find it tremendously interesting to watch these videos, and I'm so excited to make one this year. Alright, the first question is, what is the best book you've read so far this year? If you've been watching my channel, you probably know the answer to this, but my favorite book that I read this year is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is a book that I feel like is so underhyped. I feel like not that many people have read it, not that many people talk about it. I read it kind of on a whim. I requested it as an ARC because I thought it sounded good, and I read it and was just blown out of the water by this book. I'm not going to summarize the books that I've read in this video because you can find those summaries elsewhere on my channel. So I'm just going to tell you what month I read books in, and you can go to my wrap-ups if you're interested in hearing a summary. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. So this book, again, it just completely blew me away. It totally surprised me. I flew through it in 2 days. It's got really short chapters. Is this like the one long chapter in this book? Yeah, like for example, like there are a lot of chapters like this that are just like a page and a little bit more. It's twisty, it shocks you, crazy stuff happens in this book. It's heartfelt, it's beautiful, the writing style is beautiful, the characters are all easy to relate to. You're following many perspectives in this book, all kind of centered around this specific family. And you get to know all these characters, and there's so many like side plots, and everything like culminates really beautifully at the end. If you like intergenerational stories and you like books where somebody's kind of telling their life story, I think you would really appreciate this book. It made me cry in an airport. What more can I say? I absolutely loved this. This book also has amazing descriptions of food. If you like food in your books, this book will definitely make you hungry. There's amazing descriptions of Caribbean cooking in this book. And obviously I gave this 5 out of 5 stars so easily. I would do it over and over again. I think I'll definitely revisit this book. I just can't say enough good things about this one. It really doesn't have any flaws, in my opinion. And I read this in March, if you'd like a full summary of it. The next question is, what is the best sequel you've read this year? Again, I feel like this isn't going to be a shocker, but I've been making a summary series on my channel for this book series, so obviously I absolutely love it. And the best sequel that I've read this year is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I read this book in January, and I haven't continued with the series still, which I don't know what's wrong with me. But the first book in the series is called A Court of Thorns and Roses, also known as ACOTAR, and I gave that book 4 stars. I thought it was really good, but it didn't quite hit the 5-star mark for me, but I definitely really enjoyed it. This book was an easy 5 out of 5 stars, so if you didn't love ACOTAR, I highly recommend continuing with this book because things get crazy. If you don't know, ACOTAR is a kind of Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it's very much kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It doesn't really go off the Beauty and the Beast formula, if you will, but it is nonetheless a very entertaining, great read. This book is like really where Sarah J. Maas kind of veered off from that formula and flipped everything on its head and just repeatedly shocked me. This book was really stressful at times. I was very invested in everything that was happening All the relationships in this book are incredibly good, and she really like expands this world in this book. Highly, highly recommend this one. Obviously, this was also a 5 out of 5 star read for me. The next question is, what is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to? And oof, I've got quite a few. I have several that just came in, so I'll talk about those. And those include Siren Queen by Niveau. First off, this cover's beautiful, and I've heard glowing reviews of this book so far, so I'm very, very excited to pick this one up. If you don't know, Niveau wrote The Empress of Salt and Fortune, which I read in March. Is that right? April? I think I read it in April. And that book was a 5 out of 5 star read for me, so I proceeded to purchase every Niveau book, including this one, which I had to pre-order. What I know about this book is that it's a coming-of-age story following an aspiring Hollywood actor, and that it has kind of a magical element with monsters, I believe, in it. And I'm just very, very excited to dive into this one. I love Niveau's writing so far, and yeah, I was just blown away by The Empress of Salt and Fortune, so I'm very, very excited to read this one. The next one I really want to get to that I pre-ordered is When Women Were Dragons. I've heard sort of mixed things about this one, but I'm really interested in the kind of premise of this book. So this book takes place kind of, I believe, in like our world, but in this version of our world, there was a mass dragoning in which a bunch of women, like thousands of women, turned into dragons. And the book, I believe, takes place quite a bit later after the mass dragoning, but it's kind of about the consequences of that event. I haven't read anything by Kelly Barnhill, but I am very excited to try this one out. And lastly, Book of Night. I don't really know anything about the premise of this book, to be honest with you. Holly Black wrote The Cruel Prince, which I still haven't read yet, but people really love that series, and I have the first book. I just have yet to read it. But I did pre-order this one just because I was really excited about it. Again, I've heard sort of mixed things about this. In fact, I should take that back. I've heard pretty bad things about this book. However, I still want to read it, and I'm still excited about it. Obviously, I pre-ordered it, and I'm going to be reading it, and you'll see what I think, hopefully later this year. Okay, the next question is kind of tangential to that one. What is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And again, I have 3 because what can you expect from me? So the first one that I've pre-ordered is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is another book by a pretty beloved author. R.F. Kuang wrote the Poppy War series, which again, I haven't picked up yet, but this book sounds absolutely amazing. And those who've read arcs of this have absolutely loved it. So I'm very, very excited to read this one once it finally comes out. Another one is Carrie Sato is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you don't know, Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors. I gave The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo 5 stars, and Daisy Jones and the Six, I believe I gave 4 stars. But I will pretty much pick up anything that Taylor Jenkins Reid writes. I haven't gotten to Malibu Rising yet, but I hope to read that very, very soon. And I believe that the main character in Carrie Sato is Back is a character that was in Malibu Rising, or like a side character in Malibu Rising. I'm not quite sure about that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. So I definitely will pick that one up before I pick this one up. The last book that I have pre-ordered for the second half of the year is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. Alexis Henderson wrote The Year of the Witching. Again, I have not read that book, but I really hope to read it soon. I believe I have it on my Kindle, and this is Alexis Henderson's second book, and I know that it has like vampires in it, but I'm very, very excited about this one as well. The next question is, what was your biggest disappointment so far this year? Similar to the last couple of questions, I have 2 for this one. The first one is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. This I ended up giving 2 stars to. I was absolutely shocked by that. Colson Whitehead is like a very, very well-respected author. People absolutely love his books. This is my first book that he's written, and I found it incredibly boring. This book is basically divided into 3 parts, and each part follows the same character, but it's not like a through plot. The book really doesn't have a plot. I think that's the problem with it. I just didn't care. So this one was incredibly disappointing. I honestly thought I'd give this 5 stars, and I gave it 2. So yeah. The other one that was incredibly disappointing was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I feel like I shouldn't have been as optimistic about this one as I was, because I gave Lock Every Door 3 stars. But Home Before Dark I ended up giving 2.5 stars. I was really excited about it. I thought that the haunted house premise would be really interesting to me. It also has a book within a book, which generally I really love, but it did not do it for me. Somehow this book ended up boring me, and yeah, it just didn't do it for me. It was slightly better than Harlem Shuffle, but not much. The next question is, what was your biggest surprise so far this year? Truthfully, my biggest book surprise was Black Cake. Other than that, my biggest surprise is probably that I like YA contemporaries. That is a genre I thought I didn't like, and I have read a few kind of flops that were YA contemporaries this year, but I've also read a lot that I've really, really enjoyed. In February, I read Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson, and subsequently discovered Tiffany D. Jackson. I absolutely love her books. Her books are pretty like twisty and dark, which is I think why I like them so much. I also read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson in April. Another one I really enjoyed was Punching the Air by Yusuf Salam and Evie Zaboy. I think I read it in March, and that one was incredibly good. I also really enjoyed Call It What You Want, which I read in May. What else? Oh, Clap When You Land. I read that in February by Elizabeth Acevedo. That's an absolutely amazing book. So quite a few YA contemporaries that I've really, really enjoyed this year. So that's definitely a genre that I shouldn't have written off as something I don't enjoy. Another genre I discovered that I like is romance. I've only read one romance book this year that I did really enjoy, but that was Beach Read by Emily Henry. I give that 4 stars, and I read that in May, and that was a really good book. So I definitely also should not write off romance, although I will admit that it's been harder to impress me with romance books than YA contemporaries. The next question is, name a new favorite author, either new to you or a debut author. Okay. I've already mentioned this author, but it's probably Niveau, who wrote The Empress of Salt and Fortune, and I also showed you Siren Queen, which is her new release. I've only read about 100 pages of Niveau's writing because The Empress of Salt and Fortune, I have the book, I don't know why I'm not holding it up. So I've only read this book by Niveau, and it's tiny, it's like 100 pages. It's 118 pages, and that is the total amount of Niveau's writing that I have read. But this book blew me out of the water. This book, like, the writing style is so gorgeous. It's such a like cozy read. I read this one in April. I loved every second of it. I haven't read the sequel yet, but I plan to soon. I have absolutely no doubt after reading only 100 pages that I found a favorite author in Niveau, and I'm so, so happy about that. Okay, the next question is, what is your newest fictional crush? And I don't really crush on book characters. It's just not really my thing. Probably the best answer that I can possibly give for this one is Rhysand from Akamath. Yeah, that's probably the most like crushy I've felt about any character in a book that I've read this year. So if you haven't picked up this book and haven't picked up this series, I really, really recommend it because clearly I can't stop talking about it. It's wonderful. And Rhysand is everything. The next question is, what is your newest favorite character? Or I guess, who is your newest favorite character? Okay, listen. I think my favorite character that I've read this year is January Andrews from Beach Read by Emily Henry. I just related to January. Like, more than any character I've read this year, I think I've related to January, and I just understand her. I feel like she's very similar to me, and that was really, really awesome to read about. I did give this book 4 stars, not 5 stars. I don't think I'd read it again, but yeah, January is just super relatable. I really, really liked her. So she's probably my favorite. If you haven't picked up Beach Read, I highly recommend it. It was amazing, and it's, again, the first romance that I've like truly, really enjoyed. So there you go. The next question is, name a book that made you cry. Now, here's the thing about me crying when I read books. I rarely, if ever, cry when I'm reading. So when I do, usually those books are an automatic 5-star read, because if the author can make my like cold stone heart feel something, and especially like feel enough that I would cry, they deserve it. They deserve the stars, you know? So, gonna talk about Black Cake for the 100th time. Black Cake made me cry. But another book that made me cry is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Motar. This book is beautiful. And I had no idea how invested I was in this book until I got to the end and was crying. And I read this, I believe, in January. The thing that you have to realize about this book is that you aren't gonna know what's going on, and you're really not meant to know what's going on. You kind of piece it together at the end. But if you start this book and you're like, I just don't get it, push through it. Like, please, please push through it. It's so worth it. It's such a gorgeous lyrical read. Like, read this. This was another 5 out of 5-star read for me, obviously, because it made me cry. And going off of that, the next question is, name a book that made you happy. I find that the books that make me cry and make me really sad often also make me really happy. So the next one I'm going to give you is also a 5 out of 5-star read for me. I also cried, but it also made me very, very happy. It was quite the roller coaster. And that book is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I read this in May, and boy, was this incredible. This is another intergenerational story. I'm learning that that's something I really, really love in books. So if you have intergenerational, multi-generational recommendations for me, please leave them down below. I will read them so fast. This book follows like generations upon generations of this family. So it's got kind of a lot of protagonists, and their story is tragic, but their story is also hopeful, and there were moments that just made my soul so happy. So I definitely recommend this one, and it definitely did make me happy, but it also made me sad. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year? So I recently, probably in the last month, I've acquired a few graphic novels. I ordered a handful of them just because I wanted to have them around. I wanted to kind of get more into graphic novels. I think I've only read one or two. Oh, I've read Saga. I've read multiple of the Saga books, and I've read Mooncakes. I want to say I didn't really love that one, but I ordered 3 more, and 2 of them are so pretty. Are you ready? The first one is On a Sunbeam. This cover, I mean, I think it's pretty, but the spine of this book, come on. It's like koi fish in space. This on my bookshelf is the most eye-catching, most beautiful thing, I swear, that I've ever seen. So this one's absolutely gorgeous, and I want to show another graphic novel that's like all around beautiful. I recently purchased Brazen by Penelope Bagiu, and first of all, look at this cover. Look at the back. Look at the spine. Like, this one's all around like incredibly gorgeous, and the art style is also like really cool and pretty, and there's just nothing to hate about this, although I haven't read it yet. But aesthetically, this book is probably one of the most beautiful books that I own. Maybe the most beautiful book I own all around. But On a Sunbeam takes the cake for the spine. The final question for this tag is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Every book that's behind me. But I'd say that my priority reads are really sequels, finishing series. So the ACOTAR series, which I talked about earlier, I still have to finish that series. I still need to read A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and A Court of Silver Flames. I really, really need to prioritize this because it's been 5 months since I picked one of these books up, and I really, really, really want to continue with this series. So if you've read this series and you love it, like, shame me in the comments. Like, make me read this because I'm procrastinating and I don't know why. Similar story to that one. I read Jade City by Fonda Lee earlier this year, and I have yet to continue with that series, so I still have to read Jade War and Jade Legacy. Yeah, I just need to get to these. They're just long, and the first one, while I loved it, I think I gave it 4.5 stars, it was dense, and so I'm just kind of like wary of picking these up, even though I want to read them so badly. Again, if you've read this series and you love it, make me read it. Like, convince me to read it down in the comments, please. The last is a book. I'm not even gonna hold up all of the books in this series because it's just not gonna happen this year. But my goal is to read the next book, and that is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is the sequel to The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which I read last year. That was a 5 out of 5 star book. That was an amazing, phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. And I'm sure this one's also going to be a 5 out of 5 star book. The issue is that it's thousands of pages long, so I'm not even going to try to finish the series. My goal is just to read this singular sequel. I feel like if I pick this book up, it's going to be the only physical book that I read that entire month. But maybe I just need to, like, accept that and do it. So that is it for my mid-year book freakout tag. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're new, please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I put out one bookish video every week, sometimes two, if I can pull it off. If you're still here, thank you so much for being here. I always really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.